Hello, everyone, and welcome to the webinar today. So, I'll just quickly introduce myself. My name is Viren Thakur, and I work in the consulting vertical of our organization, Digitra, which is actually an acronym for digital transformation. We are ourselves an ISO 19650 certified company and have been associated with CDCP and Building Smart India for a long time now. Personally, I am myself a civil engineering graduate with a postgraduate degree in construction management. I've been working in the information management domain since more than 8 years now and have been consulting organizations for the last 5 years, mainly focusing on ISO 1950, 19650 standards. So now coming to CDCP and Building Smart India. India is currently executing a monumental $1.4 trillion infrastructure vision anchored by the Gati Shakti National Master Plan. To transform this vision into reality, our industry must move beyond the fragmented and traditional workflows. In their efforts towards this goal, CDCP India, functioning as the Building Smart India chapter, is a vendor neutral, not for profit national society dedicated to this very transformation. Our mission is to inspire and collaborate across the AEC sector to advance digitally enabled processes and open technologies. We serve as a critical confederation, partnering with governments, academia, and global bodies to establish the regulatory frameworks. ISO 19650 and open BIM culture are necessary for consistent outcomes by facilitating skill development and building national certification capabilities. We ensure that the digital evolution of our built environment is both validated and outcome driven. So we will have one poll now, and we would request everyone to please answer that poll. And we will not spend much time. We will only wait for 20 seconds, if that's okay with everyone. Okay. So thank you for answering the poll. So now the topic for today's webinar is Information Police ISO 19650 explained. India's infrastructure is growing rapidly. Projects are getting more bigger and more complex. Sadly, messy data causes huge delays and high costs. We must stop these waste immediately. So ISO 19650 provides the global standard for managing construction data. It brings strict order to project workflows. Adopting it is our national duty for efficient growth. It builds a disciplined and modern India. So I will just give you an idea of what value the attendees today can expect. So number one, you will learn about the basics of ISO 19650. You will understand the global data rules easily, and we will make sure that we do not use any confusing jargons while doing so. Number two, how to stop data loss. You will learn how to organize your project files properly, and this specifically will stop costly mistakes which are happening on the site. Number three, how to enable better team collaboration. You will discover how to connect your teams seamlessly and how everyone works together on a single source of truth. And last but not least, boost your project efficiency. You will understand how you can save valuable time and money using smart information management tools. So I think we will now just go to another poll question that we have. Again, we will just wait for 20 seconds. Okay, thank you, everyone. Now, that being said, I would now like to introduce our speaker for the day, Mr. Viraj Voditel. Viraj is one of the leaders of digital transformation in the architecture, engineering, and construction industry, or the AEC industry, as we like to call it. He's the founder of Texture, which he started while still at BITS Pilani, and he's also won the National 3D Design Challenge earlier in his career. Today, he is the driving force behind Cube, a SaaS platform revolutionizing the project management. Viraj plays a vital role in pioneering BIM and allied technologies across India. He is a committee member of the Bureau of Indian Standards, paving his way for digital construction. He also serves as an advisor to Building Smart India and is a core member uh, of the National Digital Twin think tank community. His work ensures our digital foundations remain strong and steadfast for a Viksit Bharat. Welcome, Viraj. It is a pleasure to have you with us today, and I request you to please start today's session.
Thank you so much, Viren, for the kind introduction. Good afternoon, everyone. My name is Viraj, and I'll be taking you through today's presentation. So before I begin, I'd just like to thank CDCP and Building Smart India team to consider me worthy to deliver this webinar and to take you all through today's topic. So let me just quickly share my screen. Yes. So I hope everyone can see the slides. Yes. So yeah, let me begin by talking a little bit about the title that we see here, which is the Information Police ISO 19650 explained. So I think we are all aware that the core focus today is going to be on this international standard 19650, which applies to the architectural, engineering, and construction sector as a whole. But I could also see through the poll results that many of you are not that familiar with this particular standard and a few of the jargons related to this. So what I'll be doing is that I'll be first introducing this standard, talking a bit about it, and then also giving you a little bit of glimpse of how some of these things can be practically implemented. So that's how I have structured today's presentation. And the title about information police, before I begin, I'd just like to spend a minute talking about it so that it doesn't, give you the wrong impression. So by using the word police here, we are not talking about active enforcement. You're not going to be, fined, or there are no penalties for not following these standards. So it's not about enforcement. Rather, this entire standard is about providing a framework in which we can manage our construction projects in a much more effective and efficient manner. So, with that out of the way, like I said, today what we are going to be covering, I've divided it into four major parts. Uh, I'll also start by introducing a little bit about some of the global BIM standards, like how we actually arrived here. Then talking about some of the core concepts related to this standard, and then the series of ISO 19650 itself, and then how we can bring it all together and map it to the whole life cycle of any typical construction project. So that's how I've structured it. And meanwhile, I guess if you have any questions, you can please drop them in the chat box. So we'll cover those questions towards the end of the presentation. So yes. So I think we already saw a very nice introduction video before the webinar began about how India is progressing, how fast construction is happening here today. And we looked at the $1.4 trillion worth of investment that's been planned in the National Master Plan under Gati Shakti, which is helping us evolve towards this Viksit Bharat goal of 2047. So it's not just about the construction that is happening. I would say even we see a lot of organizations in India who are very active on the digital transformation side, and India being at the forefront of the IT sector anyways, um, they are contributing to not just building India, but I would say building the world. And that's where adopting a global standard like ISO 19650 becomes really very important. So, so it is something that will help bring discipline to the project data. So as construction projects are getting more and more complex, the size of information, the quality of information, and with the advent of newer technologies, especially AI, uh, we are producing data at a crazy speed. And if that is not managed in a proper way, then that itself contributes to a lot of issues on construction projects. So let's look at the first section, talking about the global BIM standards. So, ISO 19650, this particular standard, today we know it as a global standard, but it did not simply appear out of thin air. It it is something that has been culminated over the past many years of work of many individuals and many organizations who have contributed to making this standard that is today. So initially, there were fragmented standards. Many different people on their individual projects, many organizations started realizing that yes, we need to bring more discipline into our construction projects. So, we need some kind of framework, some kind of standardization. And with the kind of data the teams typically work with in the AEC industry, you have so many different kinds of formats. Just some of them I have shared on this particular slide. You have CAD files, PDF documents, you have BIM models, you have spreadsheets, you have project plans Primavera or MS project schedules, you have budgets, you have site photographs, site videos, and so much communication happening throughout the project, right? And uh, one inherent challenge that was realized was that people are maintaining their own systems, and these are typically not really compatible with each other. And there's no shared language for who is expected to deliver what, when, and based on what quality. So there was no shared language. So what shared here is important. There were things in silos that started cropping up, but a shared system was not there. And the third point that I've mentioned here is about loss of information, or as we like to call it, data drops, as things move, uh, through the construction phases. So information gets lost. So, for example, at the conceptual design stage, the architects may have prepared very high quality models, very information rich, design documentation, but that may not pass on in the same way when the contractor is appointed on site, or when a particular vendor is appointed to install something towards the end of the construction life cycle. So information gets lost as the project progresses. Of course, new information also gets created, which does not complete the feedback loop and is not really uh, uh, communicated back to the people who were involved at the initial stages of the project. So that was the problem that was identified, and then based on that, various standards started developing, and various countries developed their own standards. A few notable ones I have mentioned here, including the UK, Singapore, US, and Germany. Uh, the most, I would say, comprehensive is the right word here. One was PAS 1192, which then evolved into what we know today as ISO 19650. But there are a lot of notable mentions here, and some of them are still very relevant. For example, this DIN spec 91391 talks about common data environment, and this is fairly well detailed about CD compared to even what ISO 19650 has today. So yes, gradually these standards are further evolving, and the individual standards that cropped up are now being taken and adopted at a global level. So if I may have used certain jargons like CD, just hold on for a couple of minutes. We'll be demystifying those very, very soon. Yes. So, like I said, this led to convergence where PAS 1192 was actually elevated into a single international standard. So, this is a brief timeline for you to just understand the big picture, that these standards have not just appeared out of thin air. You can see the initial version was actually published in 2007. So, which signifies like today we are in 2026. So, it's been like more than 20 years that these standards have been under development. So yes, and it's not stopping here. So as we'll cover towards the end of the presentation, the standards are even further evolving, and there's a new revision that is also being planned in the coming year. So that brings us to the next section where I'll try to demystify some of the jargons that you may come across in today's webinar. And I'll try to be as simple as possible to explain them. Yes, so we all work on projects because the AC industry, everything revolves around the project. But let's take a step back and try to understand a bit more about this word project. So it's like the definition here says it's a temporary endeavor undertaken to create a unique product, service, or result. So the word here, which is very important, is temporary because our industry is very unique. Every building is unique. Even if the designs are the same, you may have different people building it on the construction site. Even if the contractor is the same, you may have different people occupying and maintaining and operating it once the project has been completed, right? So at the end of the day, this is a very unique thing or unique characteristic about our industry. And this is very different from the word process, because if you look at something like a manufacturing process, which is designed to create the same products uh, day after day, week after week, year after year, and the process exists to ensure that the deliverable is exactly the same. But practically, that is almost impossible in the construction industry, which is where we need to understand that we are not running after perfection here. We don't want to ensure that every project is built exactly the same way. So the processes and the standard is not talking about how we can ensure that it's the same deliverable. At the end of the day, we reach the exact same quality. That's not the main outcome of this particular standard, because that's not the nature of the industry. That's not the nature of projects that we work on. And one more important thing to know about projects is that it revolves around these three constraints: scope, time, and cost. And how well you balance these three vertices is how well the outcome or the quality will be. And this is where the information management side, is playing the behind the scenes role. If your information management across any of these dimensions is not properly done, then you will have a mismanaged project at the end of the day. So good information management keeps all of these three things under control. That's why this is so very important. So coming to the word information management, let me demystify that as well. So you can see a definition here, but in very plain simple words, we are talking about raw data being converted into organized information so that it can be easily understandable by everyone on the project. Okay, that's the layman meaning or representation of this particular term. And when we say everyone, we need to look at all the different people, all the different stakeholders who are part of the project. And that's very important because not everyone comes from the same background in a project in our industry. We have people who have done, multiple degrees, bachelor's, master's, PhDs working on the project. And we also have, blue collar workers. We also have people on the construction site who may never have even gone to school. So that's a very broad spectrum. And when we say that information management needs to have people at the center, we are not just talking about one set of people. We are talking about the entire set of stakeholders and making this information accessible to everyone. The second part is processes, where we have certain workflows in place and certain standards in place to ensure whatever information is getting created, that is getting created, of course, in a proper way and then communicated, and then project should be executed using that in a proper way. So all of that can happen through processes. And this is one very important pillar where this standard is focusing on. And the last part is technology, which is kind of omnipresent all around us. We have technology evolving. All of us are using this in some way or the other. But again, very important to understand that technology, software, this is going to provide the tools, but it will all fall apart if people don't follow it or people don't follow the processes properly. So even if you are utilizing the most expensive and the like best software on a project, but still it may not yield the required results if it is not implemented in a proper way by the people involved. So yes, so that is this. And then yes, now again, some set of jargons that you will find in this particular set of standards, which is appointing party, lead appointed party, and appointed party. So again, let me just give you very simple alternative terms to these. So you can think of owner, then you can think of lead architect or a PMC, like what happens in Indian projects. And then you have contractor and subcontractors on the third level. So appointing party is someone you can consider like the project owners or maybe the government, someone who is sanctioning the project or basically funding the project. And then the lead appointed parties are the ones, typically lead appointed party would be one or maximum two organizations who will, on behalf of the appointing party, appoint other parties and coordinate all the work and coordinate all the delivery. And then appointed parties are all the other organizations who are forming a part of the project. So the word party here generally refers to organizations, but a neutral term like party has been used in the standard because it could be individuals, it could be partnerships, it could be any kind of a entity for that matter. So that's the beauty of the standard, I would say, that such neutral terminologies have been used. And, you know, like once you get the hang of it, the terms like owner or client or PMC will or project management consultant will start sounding, a bit alien. Like I find these terms much more, useful and appropriate when referring to any, because these are covering any kind of project, whether it's a design build project, whether it's irrespective of the kind of contract or kind of project it is. Then the next terminology that is used, again, simple terms. Uh, yeah, am I audible?
Yes, Viraj. Think we
Yeah,
just
okay.
lost your video for a second, but you're audible.
Yeah, no worries. So, yeah, so we are again talking here about simple terms like teams. So people will essentially be organized into these teams, and these teams will typically be classified into project teams, delivery teams, and then task teams. So there's a hierarchical breakdown which is specified in this particular standard, so as to ensure that people are clear about what their roles are and what how they are contributing to making that project successful. Uh, yeah, the next thing is about the hierarchy of information requirements. So again, some jargons you will find in this particular standard, but conceptually very simple. At the top, you have the organizational information requirements. So the word IR is kind of common here, information requirements. So what IR means is that we are specifying that when the project is ongoing or when it is completed, what is the end outcome of information that we wish to receive? As simple as that. So at the top, we have the organizational requirements because the organization, let's say the, you know, appointing party will essentially define that these are my standards as my organization. This is what I'm expecting for maybe all my projects, right? And these things, asset information requirements. So you may have similar assets. So the word asset here refers to any kind of construction assets that are getting created, including the building whole as an asset, or certain sub items within it, maybe like equipment or fixtures, anything for that matter. All of that is referred to as assets, and those may be common across projects. So you may have, a plant room in a school also, and you may have a plant room in a data center also. So that's why the project information sits below this. And then within a project, you have exchange information requirements, where at every exchange between any two stakeholders, you have uh, these standards coming in place. Yes, so I think we already covered this. Let me skip this part. Yeah, and these models will eventually evolve into each other. So as the project is being worked upon, so during the delivery stage, it will be called as a project information model. And as it is handed over, it will become the asset information model. And then that asset information model will actually be used to define the next project's information model, whatever learnings are there, whatever lessons learned, whatever things that went wrong, that will be incorporated as feedback and then form the next project information model. Another term that you would come across is the word BEP, BIM execution plan. So this is typically just a document which again talks about what requirements of information modeling are required, and then the prospective team. So think of it like a owner having a new project, and they will set across some requirements through that EIR or project information requirement document, and then based on that, whoever are the prospective teams wanting to work on that project, they will prepare something called as a pre-appointment BEP, which is a response to those requirements. Something similar to how the tendering process works and how people submit what quality of work and how they will execute that project. Similar thing, but for information side. And then once the party is appointed, then there is a confirmed VP on which a project is executed. So this is typically how the information flows in a BEP, but in many projects, practically, we've seen that this thing can get skipped as well. So now coming to the third section, talking actually about the series. So why the word series here is because there are 6 parts to ISO 19650. It's not just one single document, but it consists of 6 different parts. So let me just quickly talk about what is ISO 19650. So I think most of us are familiar with the word ISO, if not 19650. So it's an organization that works on developing international standards. And this one in particular is the standard for managing the information for the whole life cycle of a built asset. Okay. And using BIM, using building information modeling. So BIM is an integral part of this particular ISO 19650 set of documents, but not necessary that BIM has to be implemented. This series is in general also very useful for information management. So all of them are published now as of this discussion that we are having, as of this webinar. But yeah. Yes, and why is it important to adopt ISO 19650? So the reason for that is multifold. It talks about having a single source of truth. It talks about defining clear responsibilities for different stakeholders. It advocates how we can have less rework, have less risk. In fact, there's an entire new standard talking about risk side of things, how there can be reliable handovers across different stages of the project lifecycle, how there can be a complete whole lifecycle value, and there should be a global language. When I say use the word language here, it's not the spoken language, but it's a common set of understanding and common set of standards that everyone can follow. So that's the case for it, and we see most of the projects and most of the organizations globally have started to adopt it. So these are the 6 parts. So I have also mentioned the years here on which these documents were published. So as you can see, 2018 was the year where the first 2 phases came out, first 2 documents, and then the next couple of documents, the third and fifth one, came in 2020, just around COVID times, and then we had the fourth one getting published in 22. And very recently, a new standard, which is for health and safety, has emerged just last year. Yes, so talking about, I'll just spend a little bit more time on the first couple of parts. Those are the most important ones because these introduce a lot of the concepts that we talked about in the previous few slides also. And I'll also take a moment to maybe show you practically how these concepts can be applied. So yes, so the first part actually talks about the principles and concepts. Most of them we have already discussed in the previous section where we talked about the different jargons that will come across in this particular set of documents. The thing which we did not talk about and which this standard establishes very importantly is the common data environment side of things. So common data environment as a single source of truth is actually established in this particular uh, first uh, first uh, first document of part one of ISO 19650, and uh, it has two major concepts. First is that it has to have a single source of truth, and to prepare the single source of truth, there the information needs to be divided into 4 virtual spaces or states. For example, any work or any deliverable that you can think of. And let's take example of simple drawing. So that drawing will be first a work in progress by, let's say, an architectural team. Then when they are ready to share it with other design consultants, let's say the structural engineers or the MEP engineers, then it would move to a shared state or a shared space where other people, other teams will get access to it and start updating their own set of documentation. When this shared set of information is finally reviewed and sent to, let's say, the appointing party, and it gets approval there as well, then it moves into a published state where it is approved for use, where it can be taken to the construction site and used for construction. And then finally, as the project starts getting complete, as-built records start getting into the system, and the final versions start getting archived so that this information is ready for use for the next project. And then again, all of those lessons learned and all those things can flow from here for the next project. Even as we are stepping into the age of AI, I would take a moment to talk about that, where AI is going to learn on how your future projects are going to be done only based on the past data that it has available. So this also advocates to organize your data in a proper format, not just after the construction is completed, but during the entire process, and it brings that sort of discipline. But how to enforce this? That's where the technology piece will come in. Okay? Where we have software which can help you organize all your project information into proper folders uh, in to ensure that all of these states are properly followed. The other thing that the standard talks about is the naming convention. So there is this term here called as information container. This you can for now just assume it as a file. So every file or every document that exists on the project, it advocates that it should follow proper naming conventions. And this is one of the guidelines that it talks about, where you have this 8 levels or 7 levels of breakup of the particular name of any document. So project name, originator, volume, level, type, roll number. So this is an example. It's not like compulsory to follow just this naming convention because project needs may differ, but this is the one that is advocated by ISO19650. But we have seen that many projects are there which come up with their own naming conventions, and those may differ from project to project also. And then there may be other things like status codes, revisions, and some other metadata that may be required depending on project to project. Yeah. So before I move to the second one, let me quickly show you a live example of this. Uh, See if I can quickly switch my screen share. Yes. So I have shared my screen where we have this common data environment where I have this sample project here, and it's virtually divided into something called as those spaces that we looked at in the slides. And these spaces could again differ from project to project, but there may be some work in progress spaces. Let me just zoom in a little bit. Yeah. So there may be work in progress spaces, there may be archival spaces, there may be space for the project owner, there may be collaborative spaces. And these are basically those different buckets that we looked at, those 4 buckets. And if I open any particular space, so this is where we talk about having a well set folder structure, not just at a very high level, but at a individual level as well. So essentially, common data environment is helping you organize and keep all your files in one place and also specify the roles and permissions for each user or each actor that we looked at in the slides. So there may be differing levels of access at different levels, and there may be, based on the stage of the project, there may be different overall spaces of the project as well. And the other thing which we looked at the term was information containers. So information containers are essentially nothing but you can think of them as, different files itself, but placeholders for them. So there could be different documents that may be created throughout the life cycle of a project, but they may not necessarily be uploaded onto the system at the start of the project. So you can create these kinds of placeholders and using a combination of spaces, folders, and information containers. So for example, if I'm going to upload, let's say a drawing set here as a PDF, and so this is some additional metadata that is being required on my project. So let's say these are my, yeah, so this drawing set has been created as an information container. As you can see here, it does not have a version yet. And then the further set of files are uploaded to these containers. So these 3 things together form the information architecture of your project. One last thing which I want to show you before I switch back to the slides is the nomenclature part. So if I come here, we saw that the standard talks about a certain set of nomenclature that should be defined for every deliverable in the project. But how to enforce that? because people will end up renaming and using their own set of standards to enforce. The CDE can actually give you tools like this, where you can enforce a standard. Like, for example, let me just take 4 levels here. There were 7 levels in that standard, but just as example. And then let's say first we have 3 characters for the first 2 fields, and then 4 characters for the third field, and then we have a numerical field which has 2 characters, something like this. So I can enforce this nomenclature so that any new file which is uploaded to this particular folder. So let me just try uploading any random file here. So let's say I just upload this thing. So as you can see, it gives errors that the nomenclature is expected only in these 4 formats. And it also asks me to put in certain additional metadata for my file. I can choose to ignore this, but then that file will not get uploaded into my system. In fact, it will move to what we call as a escrow system. And then, yeah, as you can see, this error came up here that it until those errors are rectified, it won't show up for other people. And any existing files I have here, so those will also be flagged with a warning, so that if any changes are made to the nomenclature later on, so any non-compliant files which were uploaded previously or any information containers that existed, those will also be flagged. So this is how technology is helping enforce those standards or implement those standards in a practical way in a project. So let's now quickly go and cover the last few set of slides that I have. Yeah. So the second part of ISO 19650 actually talks about the information delivery phase, information during the delivery phase of a project. And it introduces these terms MIDP and TIDP. I'll not go into explaining these 2 terms as of now because this is a little bit more advanced, but you can think of those information containers which I just showed you, those placeholders for those deliverables. Those actually form the information delivery plan, and M and T IDP is the information delivery plan, where those containers can be scheduled that these drawings are actually expected by this much time from this team. So T is just for the task team and M is just for the master information delivery plan. So this 8-step information delivery process is what is talked about in the part 2, and this is irrespective of what vendor you are, even if you are small, maybe just someone who is working on supplying windows to the project, or if you're the general contractor, this remains the same for all kinds of appointed parties. The third part actually talks about the operational phase, that as we move from construction to operations, and we looked at the PIM, the project information model, how that transforms into the asset information model. And there could be both planned and unplanned trigger events. Of course, things don't always go according to plan on construction sites. So all of those cases are talked about. And then there is a linkage to another ISO standard for facilities management, which is again unrelated topic for today. But if you're interested, this is the ISO standard that is related to the part 3 of ISO 19650. So if you look at the 2 and 3 part together, which more and more organizations are now starting to look at, instead of just looking at construction and not caring about how the project will be used afterwards once the project is completed, these are now being looked at in an integrated fashion. And like we saw that PIM can become the AIM at the operational phase, and then it will inform the new PIM for the next project. The fourth part talks a bit more zoomed in on the information exchange side, where again, all those deliverables, different formats, there is a global standard for that, IFC. IFC is also an ISO standard for BIM models, for example, and there are other standard formats of exchange of information as well. So this talks about that part and what are the different roles, who provides the set of information, who receives it, who is the reviewer, how should the reviews happen, and how should we ensure the quality of the information model. So this was the last one that was released out of the 4 parts, 5 parts rather. The 5th part also released beforehand, and this talks about a security-minded approach. Because everything is related to information, like data is the new oil, as we all have heard that term. So that's where you know uh, unintended participants may get access to the information if it's not shared in a secure manner. So that's where this particular part comes in and talks about how how we can think of those risks from an information security standpoint. And another related standard to this would be ISO 27001. The last
Excuse me, Viraj. I think we are running short of time.
yeah,
So yeah, if you could just speed up the presentation. Yeah.
yeah, sure, sure. I am just closing out last couple of slides only. So the 6th part is the newest one, which talks about health safety information. We looked at that project triangle, but we did not look at the human element of it. And when we introduce the human element to the projects, of course, we need to ensure the health and safety side of it. So this completes the, all the set of standards for ISO 19650, and all of these are available to purchase from the ISO website now. Like they are all on a published site. One related standard that is there, that exists, is ISO 7817, which talks about level of information need. Again, this is a bit of a jargon, level of development, level of detail you might have heard of. So it is kind of a successor to that. And it talks about how much geometrical information should be there, how much alphanumeric information should be there, what kind of documentation should be there. And looking ahead now, we are at a state where the documents are slated to be revised, wherein we need to understand that these documents are not static documents. They will also keep continuously evolving, and people like us can provide comments and suggestions which may get incorporated as well. So the latest version is actually available to comment and provide feedback on the ISO website as well. So bringing it all together, this slide is, I think, very important to visualize how these different 6 parts play a role in the project lifecycle. Most of these, like concepts, exchange, security, are important throughout, but the part 2 is important during design and construction. Part 3 is during operations, and health and safety is, again, it plays a role right from the design stage. So yes, with that, I come towards the end of my presentation, but just I would like to end on a note saying that looking at all of these concepts and standards, we've been building a common data environment tool from India, which is the first ISO 19650 certified product for a BIM software from India, which is Cube. So I have been working on that since like last 6 years. Even the demo which I showed you was about the same, and we are trying to bring this technology to Indian projects and to people in India, and how they can implement it, keeping in mind the challenges of the Indian construction sector, where it can be used just not as a common data environment, but also for project management and to create digital twins. So that's it, and I hope that have been able to cover most of the things that we aimed for. And like Viren said, we are running a bit short on time. So with this, I would like to close my presentation. Thank you so much. And if there are any questions, we can take them up now.
Yes. Yes. Thank you, Viraj. I think there were few questions which came in, and I think they were very good questions. I would just like to let everyone know that we've gone through the questions, and there are some questions which we will not be able to answer in such short time, but we will be getting back to you with those questions on email. So you could just pay attention to your mail for that. And I think there are certain easier questions which we can just cover right now. So starting, I think the first question that we have is, how detailed should the documentation be during the initial stage of implementation? Just to get started.
Right.
I
Yeah,
think that,
that's an interesting question, which typically comes up. Uh, One thing before we look at the quantifying part of how much detail, because it talks about how much detail, but the thing is that the standard advocates that whatever information compliance or standards you're putting in place should be proportionate to what is required on that project. Okay, so like I said at the start, it's not about policing and putting in strict guidelines as to, this much documentation is required, otherwise your project is doomed to fail. So it's not like that. Uh, as the project scales, as there are more people involved, you need to have more complex documentation, more complex processes. If the project is relatively a smaller one, if there are less people involved, so it may be more important to have more flexible standards in that case, so as to not hinder the project speed or the project in itself. So that is a I would say a diplomatic answer, but then it depends from project to project at the end of the day.
yeah. Okay, thank you. The second question that we have is, what does a mature ISO 19650 organization look like 5 years after implementation?
Yes. So that's the beauty of digital transformation, I would say, that at a mature stage, when we look at that organization, these things will be practically invisible from the outside. Uh, these will show up in better ROI in terms of the projects getting much more streamlined, people having much more visibility on the way they need to execute the projects. So these will be some of the tangible outcomes. But if you look at it from just the outside, we won't even realize that, what exactly are the pieces in play that are ensuring that this organization is winning and they are being able to deliver such a mature deliverable in terms of whatever models, documents, or any of their construction documentation.
Okay. I think this also answers another question that we have. How do organizations qualify the ROI for of ISO 19650? So I think you put it very well there. So yeah, I think that
Yeah.
it answers that question as well. And there's one more question. Should an organization implement ISO 19650 on all projects simultaneously, or is it better to start with a pilot project?
Yes, that's a very interesting question. I will answer that in two parts. So if you are an organization like a government entity who is looking to, enforce some better way of working on their projects,
Mhm.
it is important to have a top-down mandate in that kind of a case. It is important to do it across the board. But if you're looking at it from an operational zoomed in level, then you cannot do it simultaneously on multiple, projects, because you will fail in one of the three areas, either people, process, or technology. Somewhere things will start crumbling if you spread things too thin and try to attempt things on too many projects at the same time. So from an operational perspective, pilots are always better, and that they give you a chance to evaluate what is working, what is not working in a kind of a simulated environment without much things going wrong. So always better to start with projects. But if we are thinking from a top, like I said, policy level, then it is important to treat projects uniformly. And because if you do it for one project and if you don't do it for another project, then you may start receiving some kind of friction at a policy level,
Mm.
and then at the end of the day, it may not really be implemented properly in either of the projects. So
Yeah. I think, yeah, thank you, Viraj, for answering. I think thank you for your insights on this. And I think thank you all who have attended the webinar today. I think we had a very fruitful discussion. I would like to just thank Viraj, for removing time for this webinar today. You know, the webinar, explored the challenges faced by the AECO industry, due to poor information management, and he explained how the ISO 19650 was evolved into a global standard to address this particular issues. The webinar today, it also covered the fundamental terminologies, roles, responsibilities, and the key information management concepts, that form the foundation of the standard. The session also provided an overview of the different parts of ISO 19650 and how they work together to support, efficient project delivery. And finally, I would like to thank Viraj. He introduced us to Cube, the platform which enables project management and information collaboration throughout the entire project lifecycle. So thank you, Viraj.
Most welcome. It was a pleasure being here. And thank you so much to the audience for listening patiently. And even if you have any questions in the future on this topic, please send an email to the team. I'd be happy to address them.
Thank you. So I think just to give you an update, we will be having our next webinar, on the topic of legal wars, BIM and forensic scheduling, where we will be discussing about delay claims and liabilities. If a project gets delayed, can the 4D timeline model prove exactly who is at fault? This session will examine how 4D visual models replace the traditional paper charts during contractual disputes to protect project cash flows. The attendees will get to know about objective liability tracking using 4D forensic scheduling to isolate the exact root cause of project delays with millimeter and time-stamped precision. Number two, mitigating litigation risks. Transitioning from subjective manual claims to unalterable digital threads that stand up in courts or RERA tribunals. And most importantly, the national economic integrity, reducing the massive financial waste caused by prolonged infrastructure disputes to drive the mission of nation building. Registration link will be announced soon on LinkedIn. And finally, I would also request everyone to please join the mission of CDCP India and Building Smart India. Your career is about your job, and it is also about your contribution to the country. Joining CDCP India and Building Smart India places you at the epicenter of the most significant technological shift in the history of Indian infrastructure. As we transition towards the $5 trillion economy, the demand for professionals who master open BIM and interoperability is skyrocketing. By becoming a member, you gain massive career advantage such as global credibility. Now, aligning yourself with international ISO standards that make your skills valid anywhere in the world. Strategic networking, you get to connect with industry leaders, government regulators, and AECO innovators who are writing the rules of Indian construction. Future proofing, move beyond proprietary software traps and master vendor neutral data schemas that provide long term career sustainability. Do not be a mere spectator of India's transformation, be its architect. Secure your professional future and serve the nation by joining our community today. Together, we will build a self reliant, digitally empowered India. Thank you, everyone, for attending this session.